Dude, he looked me straight in the eye. I will never forget this. And this is literally the single most motivating moment of my life. He looked me dead in the eyes, totally serious, my friend. And he said,
So what was the aha moment where you
So-
decided the bare minimum was no longer enough?
so when I went to med school, I went to Stony Brook for med school, and it was a class of 100. And like med school is a different game. Like everyone there is,
You said a class of 100?
there's 100 kids in the class. And 95 of them are like very fucking smart, you know? So I remember when I got to Emory, my dream was always good to go to like an Ivy League school. And I remember when I applied to all of the Ivy League schools and like, you know, Duke, I wanted to go to Duke, or I want to go to like, you know, like a really good college, you know, but I got rejected from every single one of them, you know, because I wasn't a strong enough student. You know, my grades weren't good enough, you know, my standardized test scores were fine and I did well towards the end of high school. But in my mind, I was like, you know, Emory's a great college and I have nothing bad to say about it, but I almost like felt like I belong at one of these other schools and I'm here. It was like my safety school, you know? And when I got to med school, like more than half of the class is from an Ivy League school. So there's like, you know, a bunch of kids from Harvard, a bunch of kids from Yale, a bunch of kids from Columbia, a bunch from Cornell, a bunch from Penn, a few from Princeton, some from Duke, you know, all these great schools that are represented. And I always had this chip on my shoulder, like, you know what, I didn't get to one of those schools. So like, I'm just not as smart as these guys, you know, like they're much smarter than me, you know? And my first year of medical school, I was so the class is 100, and like the way it's graded, it's like honors, high pass, fail, or something. I think it's something like that. So I was right in the middle of the class. I honored a couple of classes, I high passed a couple of classes, I passed a couple of classes, but I was like right in the middle. So probably like, you know, if there was a ranking, I was between like 40 and 50 somewhere. You know, like solidly in the middle. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm hanging with the big dogs, you know, like all these really, really smart kids, you know. And my friend from college, his name is Sammy. He's an orthopedic surgeon now. Really, really smart kid, but really hardworking kid. So we were always the kids in college that had like the highest grades on like the tests, you know, like whatever, organic chemistry or whatever it was.
Okay, this is an
It was
undergrad.
like, this is undergrad. It was always Sammy and Hash, you know. And I was like a hippie kid. I had like long hair, you know. And Sammy was kind of more of like a straight dude. And Sammy like worked really hard, but was an amazing student. And I would always do well on tests, you know. So there was always like the two of us, you know. And Sammy came to visit me when I was in my first year of medical school, the summer between my first and second year. Sammy went to Emory Medical School. I went to Stony Brook. So he came to hang out for a week, and he asked me, he's like, hey, man, how's like med school going? And I was like, oh, it's going pretty good, man. You know, I'm like right in the middle of the class. You know, I honored a couple classes, high passed a couple classes. And dude, he looked me straight in the eye. I will never forget this. And this is literally the single most motivating moment of my life. He looked me dead in the eyes, totally serious, my friend. And he said, for once in your life, why don't you apply yourself? I was like, what? He's like, dude, just try. Just try. See what happens. And I'm telling you, man, that was a fucking life-changing moment.
That was the boost you needed.
So that next year, the school year started, and I literally read the material to learn it. I was like, let me read this, you know. Instead of like going through something like 10 times to just memorize it to take the test, I would read it one time slowly just to learn it. I still never went to a single class in medical school. I did all the shit that I usually do. Like, you know, like I wasn't like, you know, I didn't care about going to a classroom and listening to the teacher. All the classes were transcribed, so you'd get the transcript of the class. So like a week before the test, or 4 or 5 days before the test, I would sit and I would study. You know, so I would just chill and then study. You know, like study crazy hard and chill very hard. So I remember just going through the transcripts very slowly to learn it, and like I had like such an understanding of the material. And then I remember that very first test that we took, it was microbiology. I think the average on the test was like a 60 something. Like, and they would like, you know, they would curve it up. I got like a 95 raw score.
Wow.
And I was like, oh shit. I was like, this is some serious shit, you know? And literally I just kept doing that for the rest of it. So for everything really going forward at that point, I was like, oh man, I was like, it's totally different. It's kind of like, I mean, it sounds so stupid to say and it sounds very arrogant, but it's like, it must be like how like a Michael Jordan or a LeBron feels, you know, like, because they put in so much work and they're so talented, you know, and it's like just, it's like a different game almost, you know. And I'm not saying I'm that, but I'm saying I felt what it must feel like to be that, you know, because I would study and it was just like a different level of understanding that I had. Like I would take a test, it was almost like a game, you know? And it really kind of went through that, like just basically from there forward for like anything academic, it just was always, it was, not that it was easy. I'd work hard and I'd learn the material, but I never worried about the test. I was like, dude, I got this. You know, like I know,
Yeah, like
you know,
you had it under control.
yeah, like, like listen, LeBron steps onto the court. He knows he's going to fucking drop 50 points if he wants to, you know? It was kind of like that sort of feeling, you know?
And that was your aha. See, that was.
And I know it all
push you
to Sammy,
needed.
man, you know, because I never had the confidence in myself to think I had that kind of talent, you know?